The next Psychic Awakening book is available for pre-order from Games Workshop, and you can buy it from the 15th of February. And it covers 3 factions. It covers the Tau, the Guard, and Genestealer cults. And in this video, we're going to focus exclusively at the Guard stuff, which also covers Scions, by the way. So what do the Guard get? Well, there's Regimental doctrines. So instead of picking Cadian or Talan, you can build your own regiment. There's rules for tank cases. You've got to give up a warlord trait for your warlord, but then you can give a tank unit, including basilisks and wyverns and hydras and things like that. You can give them a tank case instead. There's 2 pages of stratagems, and there's stuff, warlord traits and regimental doctrines for Scions as well. They're very slim on the ground. So let's start at the beginning with the regimental doctrines. We've seen this in some of the other codex expansions out there. This is mixing, matching, and making your own regiment. And what you could do is you can pick 2 of the following from the list that I'm just about to go through. Any 2. You can mix and match any 2. Then it starts off with gunnery experts. So when you roll to determine the type characteristics of any weapon or vehicle model with this doctrine is equipped with, you can re-roll one of the dice. So if you're rolling a d6 for a vehicle and you roll a 1 or 2, you can choose to re-roll that. Gunnery experts, that's quite nice. It's a quite good one. You're going to use it most of the time. Spotter details. Add 6 inches to the range characteristics of heavy weapons with a range of at least 24 inches that models with this doctrine are equipped with. So you need guns that are at least 24 inch long, and then you can add 6 inches to it. Disciplined shooters affects infantry models only. When they shoot with a rapid fire weapon against a unit within 18 inches, double the number of attacks that weapon makes, rather than following the normal rules for rapid fire weapons. So las guns, flashlights, yeah, they're not the best weapon, but an infantry model with a rapid fire weapon, so plasma guns, that will really affect plasma guns. Disciplined shooters, but it doesn't seem that great to me because it only affects a very small portion of your army and mainly just flashlights. You have got fire from the hip. This affects infantry models as well. Fire from the hip. Infantry models with this doctrine can shoot rapid fire weapons that they are equipped with even if they're advanced, but then it's -1 to hit. Combined Auspex. When resolving an Overwatch attack made by a vehicle with this doctrine, whilst within 3 inches of another regiment vehicle, they Overwatch on a 5+ rather than a 6+. Agile Warriors. Infantry units with this doctrine can re-roll the advance roll when they advance. So they're agile, they can move around a bit better. Any infantry unit as well, it would affect Bullgrins and things like that. Pyromaniacs. When resolving an attack made with a flamer, heavy flamer, or twin heavy flamer by a model with this doctrine, you can re-roll wound rolls of 1. Wilderness Survivors. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon against an infantry unit with this doctrine, if that unit did not advance in its previous movement phase, it's treated as having the benefit of cover to its saving throws. That's quite nice in first turn as well, remember. All your infantry will count as though they are in cover. That might save you 2 CP for prepared positions. Jury-rigged repairs. Jury-rigged. At the start of your turn, this is a good one. Roll a d6 for each vehicle in your army that has this doctrine. On a 2 to 4, they regain a wound. On a 5+, the model regains d3 loss wounds. It's every vehicle at the start of your turn. I like it. Only on a 1 do you not get a wound back, but 2 to 4 getting a wound across multiple vehicles, and on a 5-6 getting d3 wounds. If you're a tanker, if you're someone who brings a lot of artillery, it's just a nice way of keeping your vehicles alive better, longer. Lord's Approval. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a regiment infantry model with this doctrine, whilst they're within 9 inches of an officer, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that weapon by 1. So melee weapons become AP -1, flat melee weapons, or anything that has a higher AP, you increase that by -1. But you need to be infantry, you need to be within 9 inches of an officer. Again, I'm thinking of Bullgrins potentially. Or you can't put it on catagens, for example, because this you pick 2 of these regimental doctrines instead of the catagen regiment keyword. Monster Hunters. When resolving an attack made with a heavy weapon by a model with this doctrine against a monster unit, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any other damage. Now this is perhaps the weakest one, because yes, on a 6 you do a mortal wound in addition, but it's on a 6 you've got a 1 in 6 chance, and it's only when attacking monsters. You might fight an army that has 0 monsters in it, so this regimental doctrine will not kick in. Slum Fighters. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by an infantry model with this doctrine, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores an additional hit. And that's it. Those are the regimental doctrines there. Personally, I think they're a bit thin on the ground. There's nothing there that really jumps out. I do like jerry-rigged repairs for vehicles. There's a couple that jump out, to be fair, but there's nothing that screams turbo broken to me. After that page, we've got 2 pages of tank aces, and you can make a vehicle model, which is a Lehman Russ, a tank ace, and they've got their own chart. You can make support aces for Basilisk, Wyverns, Hydras, Manticores, and Death Strikes, and you can actually make super heavy aces. But the way you do this is, if you've got an Astra Militarum character who is your warlord, what you do is you substitute out the warlord trait and instead make one of your tanks a tank ace. And there is a 1 CP stratagem called tank ace, and basically you can do it again. So what you could do is you could choose to keep the warlord trait for your warlord and spend a CP and make a tank ace, or you can lose the warlord trait for your warlord and spend a CP and make 2 tank aces. So there's different ways you can do it. We did see that one, that CP, to buy another one in the Tyrannid Psychic Awakening book. So let's go through the tank ace abilities for Lehman Russ. So you select a vehicle model and you give it an ability, and there's 6 here, 7 here, sorry, 6. Master Mechanic. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon against this unit, reduce the damage characteristic of the weapon by 1 to a minimum of 1 for that attack. So -1 to damage. That's quite nice. That'll keep your Lehman Russ around for longer. It's not the best yet. We'll get to it. Slow and purposeful. In your shooting phase, when resolving an attack made by this model, if it did not move or moved a distance less than half its move characteristics in the preceding movement phase, reroll wound rolls of 1. So half or less, reroll wound rolls of 1. Slow and purposeful. Then we have Weapon Expert. Improve the armor penetration characteristics of a turret weapon this model is equipped with by 1. So your battle cannons all of a sudden becoming AP -3. Armored Rush. In your shooting phase, this model can shoot with a turret weapon it is equipped with, even if it advanced this turn. And then the best one, I think, is called Up Armored. And if you up armor a tank ace, the save characteristic of that Lehman Russ is now a 2-up. And I like that one. I can see people making conversions of Lehman Russes and bolting a few more plates of metal on the side to represent that that's your tank ace. And it's got a 2-up save. And then you have Steel Commander. Tank commander models with this ability can issue 1 additional tank order each turn. So these tank aces, by the way, these you can get these in addition to playing Cadians and Catachans and things like that. This is just a flat benefit that guys get. The regimental doctrines that we went through before, those will replace, but these ones are in addition. Just lose your warlord trait or spend a CP or both. So support aces for Basilisk, Wyverns, Hydras, Manticores, and Death Strikes. There's 3 of them. The first one's called Full Payload. Do not roll to determine the damage characteristics of weapons this model is equipped with. They have their maximum damage values, e.g. a weapon with a damage characteristic of a D3 automatically inflicts 3 damage. Now I don't know how much damage potentially a Death Strike missile can do, because I can't seem to find my codex anywhere, but I know it's a lot. Shatterer of Will. In the shooting phase, after you've rolled all of the attacks made by this model, select 1 enemy unit that any of those attacks scored a hit against. Until the end of the turn, subtract 2 from the leadership characteristic of that unit. and then well-stocked magazines. When rolling to determine the type characteristic of a ranged weapon this model is equipped with, you can re-roll any or all the dice. So that's your free re-roll on basilisks, potentially, because I know people like basilisks. Super heavy aces, there's 3 of these. They're a bit weak, but it's a super heavy tank. So super heavy aces obviously affect vehicles with the Titanic keyword. The first one is Inspiring Might. Basically, you roll 2, when a morale test is taken for an Astra Militarum unit within 6 inches of the model, roll an additional d6 and discard one of the dice. So Inspiring Might is a morale buff within 6 inches. Hull down deployment. This model receives the benefit of cover until the first time it moves in the battle. That one's quite nice because super heavy tanks, the majority of them, stay at the back in the corner if you're bringing one. So it's always going to have a 2-up save, essentially. It's always going to receive the benefit of cover for a couple of turns because people tend not to move their super heavy tanks for a couple of turns. Hull down deployment. And Steadfast Leviathan. If your army is Battleforged, you can give the regiment keyword to a super heavy tank, even if it's in a super heavy auxiliary detachment. Those are the tank ace abilities. Then we have 2 pages of Astra Militarum stratagems. For 1 CP, Relentless. Use this stratagem at the start of your turn, select a vehicle model that's not Titanic, and you can use the top row of its datasheet regardless of how many wounds it's lost. 1. Direct Onslaught. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Manticore or Wyvern model from your army is chosen to shoot with until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made with a Storm Eagle rocket or Wyvern Quad Storm Shard mortar by that model against a unit that's visible to it. Add 1 to the hit roll. 1 CP, Experienced Eye. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when an Astra Militarum Veterans unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. And to the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made with a weapon by a model in that unit, improve the AP characteristic of that weapon by 1. 1 CP, Furious Charge. Use this stratagem in your charge phase when an Ogren unit from your army finishes a charge move. For each enemy model in that unit, you can select one enemy. For each model in that unit, you can select one enemy unit within 1 inch of that model. And on a 4-up, you will do 1 mortal wound. That doesn't sound like much, and it is a 50-50 chance of doing 1 mortal wound. But if 6 Ogrens are charging a unit, and all of them end up within 1 inch of the enemy unit, then on a 4+, you're doing a mortal wound. That potentially could be 3 mortal wounds, that's nice for 1 CP. For 1 CP, we have Splash Damage. Use the stratagem in your shooting phase when a Hellhound model from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made with a Chem Cannon, Inferno Cannon, or Melter Cannon by that model against a unit that's receiving the benefit of cover, you can re-roll the wound roll. So you've got to fire at a unit that's in cover, but re-rolling wounds with your Hellhounds for 1 CP, that's nasty. Concentrated Fire. 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a heavy weapon squad from your army is chosen to shoot with. Select 1 enemy unit. Until the end of the phase, attacks made by models in that heavy weapon squad must target that enemy unit. And when resolving those attacks, add 1 to the hit roll and wound rolls for any attack made with a weapon from the heavy weapons list. So no split fire, essentially. You're picking a heavy weapons squad, you're picking an enemy, and you can add 1 to hit and add 1 to wound. That is pretty brutal for 1 CP. A team of las cannons, even a team of autocannons or missile launchers, but adding 1 to hit, adding 1 to wound for 1 CP, concentrated fire, not splitting fire, everyone in that squad firing at the same thing. I like it. For 1 CP, Strike First, Strike Hard. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase in the first battle round when an Armoured Sentinels or Scout Sentinels unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made by a model in that unit, add 2 to the hit roll. Add 2. So in most cases, that means you're hitting on 2s. Hitting on 2s unless it's flying or negative to hit, but hitting on 2s, it's got to be the first battle round. And you've got to bring Armoured Sentinels and Scout Sentinels, but people still bring some Armoured Sentinels from time to time. Shield of Flesh, 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when an infantry unit from your army that's within 3 inches of a friendly Bulgrin's unit is chosen as the target of an attack until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made against that infantry unit. If that Bulgrin's unit is closer to the attacking model than the infantry unit, subtract 1 to the hit roll. Essentially, your Bulgrins, so long as they're closer, -1 to the hit roll, to the unit that they're targeting to the right or to the left or behind. It only affects an infantry unit though, but it's nice for 1 CP. 1 CP, Rolling Death. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Tarox unit from your army is chosen to shoot with until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made by that model. If that model moved less than half of its move characteristics, add 1 to the hit roll. We can see a pattern coming on here, can't we? For 1 CP, adding 1 to the hit roll for Tarox. For 1 CP, adding 2 to the hit roll for Sentinels. For 1 CP, adding 1 to the hit roll and adding 1 to the wound roll for heavy weapons. There's lots of buffs in here for lots of different units to add to hit. 1 CP, Head First. Use this stratagem in your charge phase when a unit from your army is chosen to charge with. Until the end of that phase, if that unit disembarked from a Chimera unit this turn, when making a charge roll for that unit, add 2 to the result. Focus Bombardment. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Master of Ordnance from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, the artillery barrage that they are equipped with has a type characteristics of heavy 6 instead of D6. Just a heavy 6. Focus Bombardment, 1 CP. Deft Maneuvering. Use the stratagem in your opponent's shooting phase when an armoured Sentinels unit from your army is chosen as the target of an attack. It has to be an armoured Sentinels unit, not a Scout Sentinels unit. But when they're chosen as the target of an attack until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made against that unit, half any damage inflicted, rounding up. I think we might see some more Sentinels, armoured Sentinels coming around. We have Psychic Conclave, it's 1 CP. You have to have a Primaris Psyker and a unit of Weird Vein Psykers within 6 inches of each other. But if you have Weird Vein Psykers, Primaris Psyker within 6 inches, 1 CP, Psychic Conclave. Both of those units can add 2 to the result of their psychic tests. 2, not 1. And each of those units can attempt to manifest 1 additional psychic power. For 1 CP, you're getting an extra psychic power from your Weird Vein Psykers, you're getting an extra psychic power from your Primaris Psyker, and adding 2. That one is a very, very good stratagem. And then finally, the only 2 CP Astra Militarum stratagem here. All the other ones I talked about are only 1 CP. This one's 2 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Layman Russ model from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made with a weapon by that model against a vehicle unit, do not roll to determine the type characteristic of that weapon. It has the maximum value. So a heavy D6 weapon will make 6 shots. If you're firing a battle cannon twice, that's a lot of shots. If you're firing a demolisher shell, some people still bring Layman Russ demolishers, it's firing 6 times. But the hail of fire, for this stratagem to pop off, it's 2 CP and your tank must be firing at another vehicle. We're not going to see that one as much because it's expensive and because there's a lot of good ones in here that you're going to want to choose from. Those are the buffs. Those are the new things for the guard, son. That's the new ones for the guard. Then there's a couple of pages in here that focus on the Ordo Tempestus. So there are Militarum Tempestus Regimental Doctrines. We have the Stormtroopers one from the main Astra Militarum Codex, or you can swap them out from Death from the Dark, the 54 Scion Jackals, and each model destroyed by an attack made by a model with this doctrine in your shooting phase is treated as 2 destroyed models in the following morale phase. We have the 32nd Thetoid Eagles. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by a model with this doctrine against a unit that is within half range and a modified hit roll of 6 scores an additional hit. We have the 133rd Lambdan Lions. Improve the AP characteristic of weapons models with this doctrine are equipped with by 1. Crack shots from the 43rd Iotan Dragons. Add 6" to the range characteristics of rapid fire weapons with this weapons models with this doctrine are equipped with. We have the Capic Eagles. Infantry models with this doctrine do not suffer the penalty for moving and firing heavy weapons. And when resolving an attack made by a model with this doctrine in a turn in which it disembarked from a transport, add 1 to the hit roll. And then the 9th Iotan Gorgoines. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by an infantry model with this doctrine against the closest enemy unit, and an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. So essentially, if you don't want to take the Stormtroopers keyword on your Tempestus regiment, you can swap it out for one of those abilities by swapping out their regimental keyword for the 133rd Lambadan Lions, or the Thetoid Eagles, or the 56th Capic Eagles. Those are the new Militarum Tempestus regimental doctrines. So this book is just giving you different flavors, different ways of playing your Stormtroopers, different regimental keywords for them. Now, each of these new regiments that they've got listed here, the 54th Scion Jackals, the 32nd Thetoid Eagles, the 133rd Lambadam Lions, all of these guys in here have a relic each that they can take as well. You have to have a Tempestus dude as your warlord, and then you can give a Tempestus dude, your warlord, or another character, one of the relics. And each of these new regiments have Militarum Tempestus warlord traits associated with them as well. So I'm not going to go through them all because they're very specific. I'm just letting you know that they're there. Let's just go through one of them, for example. So the Capic Eagles, the 55th Capic Eagles. These are the guys that don't suffer the penalty for moving and firing with heavy weapons. And when they disembark from a transport, they add 1 to the hit roll. Well, the Capic Eagles relic is called Distraction Charges. You give it to a Capic Eagles character model when resolving an Overwatch attack made by a friendly 56 Capic Eagle model within 3 inches of the model with this relic. If that attack scores a hit, the target is slowed until the end of the phase. When a charge roll is made for a slowed unit, half the result, rounding up. So that's their relic. If they get charged, you can half the opponent's charge range so long as you hit them. And their warlord trait for the 56 Capic Eagles is Master Vox. When using this warlord's voice of command abilities, it can issue orders to friendly 55th Capic Eagles infantry units within 24 inches. In addition, while this warlord is embarked within a transport model, it can still use its voice of command ability, and when doing so, take any measurements from that transport vehicle's hull. So that gives you an idea of the regimental doctrine, the relic, and the warlord trait for the 55th Capic Eagles, and they're all like that. They've all got specific things. But what we're more interested in is the 2 pages of Scion stratagems. So I'll go through all the Scion stratagems now. There's 12 of them. 11 of them are 1 CP, only 1 is 2 CP, and the first one is point blank efficacy. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Militarum Tempestus unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made with a hot shot las gun, hot shot las pistol, or hot shot volley gun by a model in that unit against a unit within half range, add 1 to the strength characteristic of the weapon for that attack. That's quite nice. Strength 4 hot shot las guns. Unquestioning Obedience 1 CP. Use this stratagem in the morale phase. Select a Tempesta Prime or Commissar model from your army. Until the end of that phase, when a morale test is taken for a friendly Militarum Tempestus unit within 12 inches of that model, it automatically passes. 12-inch bubble, automatic pass for your Tempestus within range of a Prime or a Commissar for 1 CP. 1 CP Precision Drop. Use this stratagem in your movement phase. Select 1 Aeronautica Imperialis model with the Flyer Battlefield role and the Grav Shoot Insertion ability from your army. Until the end of that phase, when a Militarum Tempestus unit with the aerial drop ability embarked aboard that model disembarks, that unit may be set up more than 5 inches away from any enemy models instead of more than 9. In addition, if that model moved more than 20 inches that phase, do not roll a d6 for each model disembarking. No models are destroyed. So for you guys who love your aerial insertions, then this is the stratagem for you. No more moving 20 inches or less to make sure that you don't lose any guys. You can fly full speed all the way across the battlefield and disembark within 5 inches, just over 5 inches away from an enemy model. And precision drop your way in there for 1 CP. It's a beautiful thing. And of course, if you've got point blank efficacy as well for another CP, then the hot shot stuff that is raining into that enemy unit as soon as you drop down from the sky with your drav chute, it's going to be glorious. I do like armoured cavalists. Advanced countermeasures. Use the stratagem before the battle. Select a Valkyrie model from your army. When you declare that model moved with hover, it does not lose the hard to hit ability. Nice, simple. And it lasts for the whole game. You just pick a Valkyrie before the game. Tactical air control, 1 CP. Use this stratagem at the start of your shooting phase. Select an officer of the fleet model from your army, and until the end of that phase, when picking an enemy unit for that model's air raid requested or strafing coordinates ability, you can measure the range and visibility from any friendly Militarum Tempestus unit on the battlefield that has a Voxcaster, instead of from the model. When rolling a d6 for that model's air raid requested ability, add 2 to the result. 1 CP, Progeny of Conflict. Use this stratagem before the battle. After nominating your Warlord, select 1 Militarum Tempestus character model from your army that does not have a Warlord trait and give him a Warlord trait. 1 CP, Killing Zone. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase. After you've shot with a Tempestus Regiment infantry unit from your army, select 1 enemy unit that had any models destroyed as a result of attacks made by models from that unit. Until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made by a friendly Tempestus infantry model against that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. Killing Zone 1 CP. Basically, after 1 Tempestus unit shoots at an enemy unit, any other Tempestus units that shoot at that same enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll for a CP. That's very nice. Tactical Misdirection 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a unit is destroyed by an attack made by a model in the 55th Capic Eagles unit from your army. In your opponent's next shooting phase, when resolving an attack made by an enemy model against a unit other than the 55th Capic Eagles unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Drilled to Perfection. This is for the 43rd Iotan Dragoons. When they, in your opponent's charge phase, until the end of that phase, when resolving an Overwatch attack made by a model in that unit, you Overwatch on a 4-up, basically, rather than on a 6-up in your opponent's charge phase. The Scion Jackals have a 1 CP stratagem, which makes a unit -1 to hit, so long as that unit is not within half range of the enemy unit firing at them. The Lamberdend Lions have a 1 CP stratagem, which allows them to do mortal wounds on a 6. With hot shot volley guns, so they shoot an enemy unit and any 6s to hit inflicts a mortal wound instead. The 32nd Thetoid Eagles get re-rolled to hit against an enemy unit within 12 inches, and it's got to be a Taurox Prime, so you pick a Taurox Prime unit, 1 CP, and so long as you're within 12 inches of an enemy unit, you're re-rolling to hit. And the 9th Iotan Gorgones, well, when they aerial drop in, they can aerial drop in more than 5 inches away rather than more than 9 inches away, but they can't charge, and that's 1 CP on a particular unit. And then the 2 CP stratagem is called Hammer Blow. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a model is destroyed by an attack made by an Aeronautica Imperialis model with the flyer battlefield roll from your army. That destroyed model's unit is pinned until the start of your next turn. The pinned unit's got to half its advance and charge rolls, and when it's its turn to shoot, it'll be -1 to hit. They've got to subtract 1 from the hit roll. So basically, you've got a flyer, it shoots at a unit of infantry or anything else, but let's say it's a unit of infantry. So long as it kills a model in that squad that it's shooting at, that's half charge and half advance and -1 to hit if that unit wants to shoot back. But you don't necessarily just have to put it at a unit that wants to shoot back at you. Say there's a swarm of 20 Gene Stealers charging across the table towards your guard lines, then one of your Valkyries only needs to kill one of these guys, and then in the next turn those Gene Stealers are advancing half and charging half because of Hammer Blow 2 CPs. That's it for the stratagems, and that's it for the chunk of the section inside the Greater Good book from the Psychic Awakening. I like the inclusion of tan cases, and there's some very interesting basic Astra Militarum stratagems in here that we're going to see being used on the tabletop straight away. I don't know how much the Scion stuff is going to get used in a competitive sense, but certainly in a narrative sense, I can see people painting up their lists or building armies in a certain way which reflect these regimental doctrines and warlord traits in a very specific, very bespoke manner. There's 2 pages of Scion stratagems for you to use as well, so we might see some more Scions on the battlefield. But that's it for this book. I've also done a video for the Tau bit and the Gene Stealer bit. If you're interested in watching that, then those videos should be up as well. Thank you to Games Workshop for sending this through to me, and happy wargaming, guys.